Hey, welcome. Today, we are diving into a really powerful political quote and the completely different reality that it represented. It's an incredible look at how the language of liberation can actually be used to justify control. So, let's jump right in.
All right, so first things first, we got to look at the vision, the big promise that was made. Think of this as the first piece of the puzzle, this really idealistic, powerful statement that was broadcast to a nation and to the world.
So, here's the quote from Libya's former leader, Muammar Gaddafi. Power, wealth, and weapons must be in the hands of the people. I mean, on the surface, that sounds amazing, right? It's this super populist, super empowering message. It speaks directly to this idea that the citizens, the people themselves, should hold all the cards.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This isn't just some catchy slogan. It's a whole vision of ultimate citizen empowerment. It paints a picture of a world where every single person has a direct say in their country's money, its military, and its politics. It's basically the dream of direct democracy, spelled out loud and clear.
But, and it's a big but, as we so often see, what sounds great in a speech doesn't always match up with what's happening on the ground. And in this case, that beautiful rhetoric started to build a very, very different picture.
So this brings us to the central question we have to ask. We have this incredible, inspiring vision of a country run by its people. But what was it actually like to live under that philosophy? What did power in the hands of the people look like in the real world?
Well, the historical record gives us a pretty stark contrast. His rule is often described using three key phrases: a revolutionary dictatorship, defined by repression and carried out using terror campaigns. I mean, those words feel like the exact opposite of the quote we just heard.
And that leaves us with this massive paradox, right? How can a leader who talks about giving all power to the people also be in charge of a regime that's described like this? How do you square that circle? How can both of these things be true at the same time? Let's break it down.
To figure this puzzle out, we have to look past the slogans. We have to get really specific about the words being used to describe what the regime was actually doing. We need to understand what these powerful terms really mean.
So first up, let's look at revolutionary dictatorship. That word, revolutionary, is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It creates this justification, this idea that the government's absolute power is okay because it's acting in the name of the revolution, which is supposed to be the will of the people. It lets one person or group say, hey, our total control is necessary to protect the dream.
Okay, next up, repression. Now that word gets thrown around a lot, but what does it actually look like? Well, it's pretty much a three-step playbook. Step 1, you shut down anyone who disagrees with you. Step 2, you take over the flow of information. You control what people see and hear. And finally, Step 3, you get rid of any organized opposition. It's a clear formula for holding on to power.
And that brings us to terror campaigns. And this is where things get even darker. This isn't just about stopping people from speaking out. It's about actively using fear as a government tool. We're talking about public intimidation, using force to shut people up, and creating this feeling that you're always being watched. It's a calculated strategy to make sure everyone stays in line.
So now we have the two sides of the story, right? We have the populist promise, and we have the autocratic methods. Now we can finally bring them together and see how they were merged into this thing called the iron rhetoric. This slide lays the whole paradox out, plain as day. On the left, you've got the promise, and on the right, you've got the methods. Now, the logic of the regime was that the things on the right weren't a contradiction of the promise. They were the necessary tools to achieve it. The argument was, to give power to the people, the government first has to use its own absolute power to crush any enemies and control the story.
And that right there is the core lesson. It's how the most idealistic, empowering language, words about freedom and the power of the people, can be twisted and used as the public justification for a system of absolute, top-down control. The rhetoric says liberation, but the actions enforce something else entirely.
And so, we're left with a final, and I think really crucial question for all of us to think about. When we hear the language of freedom and empowerment being used by people in power, how do we tell the difference? How do we know if it's a genuine promise or just a tool for control? Well, as we've seen today, the answer usually isn't found in the words they speak, but in the actions they take.